Hey, Two and Talking fans, it's Leanna. As this is going up to air, song is 46% towards her next map goal. That means there's only $135 left before she can make her goal. And we have 2 weeks to go in this campaign. So to put that in perspective, if 13 people give 10 or more dollars, this thing's funded. So, and I mean, far many more than that. Watch Two Women Talking, listen to Two Women Talking, enjoy Two Women Talking. This means a lot to Song, and we really appreciate your support. If you have given or you can't give, cash is strapped. Please share the link to Song's Coffee. Sharing really helps. Sharing really ups the chances that she makes this goal. And that's it. Let's get to this week's episode. The conversation already in progress on toxic relationships. We use biographies of people, and we think that every little bit about them is how they did it. You know, it's the same way. Not everything that comes out of Andrew Tate's mouth is wrong.
Yeah.
His reasons for saying what he does is wrong. And I mean, at this point, hey, if you want to be charged with rape, you know, and trafficking, follow the Andrew Tate plan. That it's so obvious right now that at this point, I really do think Andrew Tate is an opportunistic infection.
Oh God.
There are so many 14-year-old boys and 14-year-old boys inside grown-ass men who just feel unmanned.
God.
The problem is with their mothers, and I can unpack that later, but you have something to say.
So I saw someone say Taylor Swift is Andrew Tate for women.
She is. She so is. Oh my God. She so is. Budget femme fatale. I'm telling you.
Well, for me, I was like, it's like I see it, but I'm also like, I feel like there's a pretty huge difference between I have unrealistic standards and so my relationships don't work, and I'm going to manipulate people until I am charged with sex trafficking.
But this is what I was saying in a Manly Monday video that people really took wrong. Mm-hmm. That the really horribly abusive things that women do that destroy people mm-hmm. who get close to them, they're not criminal because they're not violent, but they're no less destructive.
Well, and that's something I was saying back when we first started this topic was, we don't tend to think of manipulation as abuse because there's no physical outward sign of it.
But it's absolutely abuse.
Absolutely.
It's the worst kind of abuse.
Yeah, it's so much worse because it cuts you down mentally and emotionally, which it's like a bruise can heal and it can have mental trauma, absolutely. But if you have someone who is cutting down the very essence of who you are and tearing you down, that is very hard to come back from.
But also, I mean, think about it. In abusive relationships, it's not physically violent abusive relationships. It's not constant. Mm-hmm. It's often just enough for the threat to stick. You know, my father didn't hit me all the time. He did it just enough to make the threats stick. And that is 5% violence, 95% manipulation. You know, the people that I didn't realize an early adult boyfriend I had, I didn't realize what he was doing when he took naked pictures of me. But it was a form of potential blackmail. You know, it's don't talk about what I've done or I'll release the photos. This was before revenge porn was wrong. It was the era of, well, why'd you take the pictures? And now, I mean, if they came out, it really wouldn't matter. You know, there's so many pictures of my ass on the internet that it really wouldn't matter. But I mean, the manipulation is really the core of it. And I do think that in, these celebrity stories that are, people pick one side or the other. What I wish we could talk about more, instead of these so-called, women's experts that, God, this one woman went on Heinz's stream and called men deadly weapons. And
women aren't.
Well, he was so stunned that he was kicking himself afterwards about responding to it. He spent a lot of time with his community talking about it, because he's like, I mean, I would probably have been blindsided, but I'm so mouthy. It's different. But, instead of going, oh, men are default predators, or in this case, weapons, and women are natural victims, let's just change the metaphors. If men are weapons, then they are not responsible for what they do. That doesn't help solve domestic violence. That's normalizing the men who are violent.
I mean, that even comes back to one of the ways that people defend the Second Amendment, where it's like, we don't blame a pencil when it writes something incorrectly. So why do you blame the gun when someone who was mentally unstable causes harm?
Well, and the truth is, the flaw in that is that it's not the gun we're talking about, it's the right to own it. The idea of gun ownership is a right instead of a privilege. But I mean, that I get what you're saying with that metaphor. It's appropriate here because objects don't think. Objects are just used. And that tells me something about the mindset of the woman making this statement that men are animals or weapons. In their mind, men should be controllable.
And there is a lot of the man-hating feminism, the black pill, as we've named it.
I think the trad wives, the manipulative trad wives, and the black pill feminists share this. Yeah.
And it is very much this idea that it perpetuates fear, and it also perpetuates a level of victimhood.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if the idea that all men are like that, and so you need to be afraid every time, it makes it extremely difficult to go through life. It's just going to create a sense of paranoia.
Well, but what it does is it normalizes the men that are like that. It's the same way men cheat. You are more likely to end up with someone who is all the things you don't like because you think it's unavoidable. The same way, if you think it's unavoidable that everybody's going to abandon you, you're more likely to end up alone. Self-fulfilling prophecies are a thing.
And it's like, I see so many women online who they hate the fact that they're straight.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I hate that straight women are attracted to their main predator. And I'm like, that's such a sad way to look at life.
The grass is always greener, honeys. Oh my Lord. And that's the thing. I mean, why do I have such a terrible reaction to Shadowheart? Oh, I got taken by too many of them.
Have you heard of the comedian Taylor Tomlinson?
Yeah.
Okay. She talks a lot about like relationships and mental health, but one of her things was, she talked about how the first time she went into therapy and she told her therapist, some of the stuff with her relationships, she was like, and she didn't tell me, oh, you poor thing, poor you, none of it's your fault. Instead, she said, well, it sounds like you're a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh God, that's so refreshing to hear.
Yeah, it really is the most liberating thing you can realize is sometimes it is your fault, and that's okay. Because I mean, it's funny because people blame themselves for everything that isn't their fault and take responsibility for none of the things that are their fault. And
Oh God, that's so true.
one of the things that absolutely is your fault is if you see the red flag and ignore it.
Yep.
And at this point, see the person that we talked about before where the intervention happened, the number of those guys who defended Shadowheart. It's 3 out of 4.
Yep.
And so it was not at all surprising. And that's part of the reason I'm like, all right, these are people who think manipulation is a natural state. I have to be very, very careful and create a whole ton of evidence because yikes.
And like we saw it in the way they talk to you.
Well, yeah, I mean the other thing you have to watch about guys who defend the Shadowheart types is they do get punitive if you don't act like you want a big man to come and do all your trials so you can become a Dark Justiciar, right? They do get like the mask drops, the nice guy mask drops really, really fast when you go, no. And that's not, I want to be clear, this is not all men. There are plenty of guys that are great and don't do this shit. But there's something about guys who defend the indefensible in some of the things that character does. Shadowheart is the toxic girlfriend of the GM who he's brought his girlfriend to D&D night. She hates all his friends. She's complaining behind his back, but if he's ignoring, if he just goes and plays D&D with his buddies, then she's going to complain. So he brings her to D&D night and breaks every single rule so she doesn't cry.
Ugh.
That is Shadowheart.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
The thing is, a lot of nerd guys think that's all women. And it's funny because when they meet a woman that isn't like that, then it's sort of like what's happened with Karlach. It's sort of honorary guy because they think this is guy stuff. You know, the whole Star Wars discourse. If this is guy stuff, just let us have it. What? Excuse me? On what planet? But because they think this is guy stuff, women aren't supposed to like it. Therefore, women who do like it are less feminine and therefore less appealing. And a lot, you know, I find that some of the things we say that get the strongest reactions, I read the comment and go, they're reacting to this because it's true. And they don't want to admit it. And I personally, I mean, boundaries are really important to make sure. I think we should pivot now to sort of how do you avoid being toxic? Because as Song said multiple times, being toxic is something everyone is capable of. Everybody has toxic traits. And taking it all on yourself so that other people don't get hurt, as we've made abundantly clear, I do, is not necessarily the right call. It can be toxic in and of itself. You know, if you start taking out things on people who don't deserve it because you're buckling under the weight of the burden, that's toxic. You know, if you're convincing yourself that your role in life is to suffer, that's toxic. That is setting an expectation that is going to make you miserable. And if you're miserable, then I find especially women are, no, you know what? Everybody, if your partner is unhappy, you feel like a failure. So if somebody is walking around fatalistic, like a lot of these guys, these conservative guys, it's funny. It's a different coat of paint with liberal men and conservative men, right? The conservative men are just complaining all the time, grumble, grumble, grumble. The liberal men are doing yes, all men are predators. Like, well, of course it's like, what did you just confess there, bro? You know, that I'm gonna I'm going to take the long way home to avoid you there, because you can only speak for yourself. But, when your partner is miserable, you feel inadequate.
Yeah.
They can tell you it's not your fault. They can insist, no, it's me, until they're blue in the face. If your partner's not happy, you do feel like you've let them down somehow. And it's not logical, but it's just sort of unavoidable when you see someone you love suffering. And for people who do struggle with depression and this stuff, this isn't intended to make you feel bad. It's just a reality. And, if you don't believe that it's inevitable, if you believe that better is possible, because it is, you can use that as fuel to do better. You'll do the self-care, you'll do the emotional maintenance, you'll do the stuff so that you don't fall into that pit again, because it's better than the alternative. But the noble suffering can be extremely toxic.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And with women, it's I really do think it, with men, that is a form of toxic selflessness, right? They take everything on themselves, grumble, grumble, grumble. They don't realize how much it's bleeding all over the place. With women, I mean, it's I symbolize it as my mother in the kitchen, smashing dishes in the sink, like just putting things down way too heavy because she won't ask for help. She's passive aggressiving all over the place because she won't go, will someone please get in here and help me with these dishes? There were 10 people eating tonight and I'm one person. And
yeah,
I saw the intergenerational backlash there, because my grandmother, it was a rule. If you didn't help cook, you did the dishes. And I thought that was a great rule. That made sense to me because it wasn't separating things into men's work and women's work. It was an incentive. If you really hate dishes like I do, help with the damn cooking. Everybody does something. For whatever reason, my mother rebelled against that. And she went, which is weird because I mean, my grandmother was born in the 1900s. My mother was born in 39. And so my mother was sort of coming up in, and I guess it was the 50s. So she did get that, false gloss regression. But she was an adult in the 60s, but we were expected to help because we were girls. Men were not. And did I resent that?
Yeah.
So I did not care that she was miserable in the kitchen. If you want help, ask. And I really do think, I think that's why I went through a radical feminist phase, because, oh God, did I resent the fact that I was supposed to cook dinner for my sister because I was the oldest, and then cook dinner and clean up after a bunch of men because I was a girl.
Yeah.
And, strangely, my sister got real good at going out there and standing there and not doing anything. And I realized that was the path of least resistance, but that kind of bit her later in life.
Yeah.
Because she didn't learn to say no. But I mean, that's the different innate reactions to things, right? I would fight it. Whereas she was smarter. But both catch up to you eventually, and you need to correct so that you're not fighting the world, but you're also not. I mean, my sister she is the worst for letting men in her life get away with insane stuff and take it out on everybody else and enable it, and then afterwards think it's gonna all be okay because she gets somebody else to say the relationship's not going well. Teary, she could really use you right now. And then I'm the bad guy when it's like, well, she knows where I am because this is far from the first time.
Yeah.
But of course, that's acceptable girl behavior. That was the wrong answer on my part, right? I was supposed to go, oh yeah, I'll call her. She needs me. Run to the rescue. White Knight, all that shit. Go do Shadowheart's trials for her. I was like, no, she didn't learn the first 3 times. Why? Because the first time they do it to you, you didn't know.
Yeah.
The second time they do it to you, they said they'd do better. Every other time they do it, and there are no consequences. Remember off the top, I said there need to be consequences?
Mm-hmm.
Every time they do it, and there are not consequences, you are essentially now signing a contract that you will accept their bullshit.
And like, here's the thing, that is part of why people got sick of Taylor Swift's Victim Act.
Yep.
Because she did John Mayer, she did Ryan Gosling, she did Joe Jonas before that. And it's like, okay, you're not the victim anymore.
You know what would have redeemed her for me? If the Tom Hiddleston song had been, yeah, I'm the problem. Not maybe I'm the problem. It's like, yeah, this is a great guy and I'm me.
Okay, it almost got there.
Almost, but not quite.
Yeah, so you've heard Getaway Car, right?
Yeah. Oh, I listened to it because I was bracing myself. It's like I needed to mark him safe from Taylor Swift.
Oh God, I love that. That's become a running joke.
Yeah. I needed to. It's like, did he survive the song? Did he survive the song?
Yeah. For those who haven't heard it and who don't want to go listen, it's basically just, I needed a reason to leave the guy I was with, Calvin Harris.
Yeah.
And you were there and you were my getaway car, and then I took the money and I left you in the hotel bar, and you should have known. There should have been alarm bells. And I'm like, oh, come on.
Okay. On the one hand, yes, if she's with somebody and she's using you as the getaway car, she will have a getaway car from you. But I think she is probably a Shadowheart in that she knows how to push guys' buttons.
Mm-hmm.
And she knows guys who are more sensitive and are more, goes from, we had a really great conversation to you are my everything very, very quickly.
Oh yeah.
Which is lovely. It's an introvert thing. A wonderful conversation is crack. And there are some women who know how to exploit that. And I really think she's one of them. And I think that we need to protect the guys in our life like that who, yeah, and it's not that they're saying it's not love. Because they are somewhat simple,
mm-hmm.
and they are loyal and they are all these things, and they assume everybody who they connect with is also the same because they can't give up. They need to believe it's possible. We do need to go, okay, slow down, like give it the 3-day rule. Just it's cool. Like, yeah, I'm glad it's great, but don't book the venue for the wedding just yet, buddy. Like, we've been through this. Like, let's work the steps, okay? Because guys do need that support as much as women do.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a toxic behavior. I keep hoping the engagement to the villain from the Marvels is going to hold with Tom Hiddleston, because we need a post-Taylor success story.
We really do.
Like, because it's like when, oh God, it's like when Orlando Bloom married that supermodel, and it just felt not in keeping with everything I'd read about the guy. And images can be manufactured, right? But then when they broke up, and he seems to fit with Katy Perry a lot better.
It's odd, but it seems to work.
Well, she seems happier and he seems happier. I mean, Russell Brand, what was she thinking? She thought she could fix him. She thought she could fix him.
Which, it's kind of odd because like I heard a rumor that part of why that broke up was because he was trying to get sober, but she still wanted to go out and party.
Which is funny because now she's doing a line of non-alcoholic drinks that are ridiculously expensive.
Of course they are. Oh, you remember Macklemore?
Yeah.
And his thrift shop.
Yeah.
What are you idiots doing paying $50 for a t-shirt?
Yeah.
He now sells $45 golf shirts.
That's affordable now.
That's the sad thing. And you know, ever since Taylor Swift became a billionaire, I've seen people who are like, you know, I like Taylor, but you know, there's no such thing as an ethical billionaire. She should have to give away some of that money, yada yada. And I'm like, how long until $1 billion isn't even that big a deal anymore?
Well, it's less
like
and less of a big deal.
Yeah, because it's like I'm well aware of the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. I get that, but it's like $1 million is nothing anymore.
But I mean, those same people, if she did give all that, if she did give a bunch of money away, they'd find something else to criticize her for. Like,
well, these are actually some of her fans.
Yeah, I know.
They're, and that's part of the thing, isn't it? Where I mean, you know, one of the things is like, well, you only become a billionaire by taking advantage and stepping on people. Okay, you know, I can tell you exactly who Taylor Swift stepped on. It was all the men she made her big songs about.
Yep.
And you know, the other day I had All Too Well stuck in my head. And so I was listening to the 10-minute version on my way home. And there was a point where it switched. And I'm like, oh, this is where she went from the ingenue to the femme fatale. And just everything since then, it's this bitterness of she can't forgive the fact that Ryan Gosling couldn't show up.
And the fact that it's Ryan Gosling now is just so perfect.
I know. And here's the thing, switching over to Ryan Gosling and the fact that, you know, that I'm Just Ken won
that really surprised me.
It surprises me a little bit. At the same time, like, I don't think I've ever even listened to the Billie Eilish song all the way through outside of the movie itself.
I am watching the award circuit find awards to give Barbie because they don't want to be accused of sexism. I mean, which award was it? It was literally a new award. It was something like sales at the Golden Globes.
I think
or something like that. Because if it had gotten shut out against movies like Oppenheimer, there would have been an online riot.
At the same time, it's like that movie is very well made, but I don't consider it an award movie.
I just, that wasn't the purpose of it. The purpose of it was for it to be a celebration of a pop culture icon.
And like the one place I can see it getting smaller awards, like costume design. Like
even then, I mean, production. The production's amazing.
Yeah, it's like production absolutely deserves awards. And the script,
the script. I think the script is deserving because they managed to make an entire narrative out of a doll that kind of exists, and the fact that they wove in Ruth Handler.
Yeah. I don't know if it deserves an Academy Award nomination.
Why does it need it? It made $1 billion.
It doesn't. And it's like, look, we all know the awards are shit. But at the same time, but going back to
when people are saying movie, like this is what ruins people. When you make $1 billion movie and you are still chasing an Oscar, you have a hole inside you that is not being filled by achievement because Hollywood cares much. Michael Bay has never won an Oscar.
No.
He makes a lot of money. So he makes movies that make a lot of money and he's good at it. You may not like them. I don't like Michael Bay movies, but they make a lot of money. That's what they're designed to be. Greta Gerwig is now a writer and a director that makes movies that make money. She doesn't need a tchotchke.
And she's the one Taylor Swift is having dinner with, because
Yep.
Taylor has said she wants to direct a movie in the
Oh,
future.
good Lord.
Which, that's going to be interesting.
That's weird because she's already got the O and the EGOT. Oh, no, she's got the Emmy. No, she's got the Oscar. No, what's the one she just won for the Heiress to the Golden Globe?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Golden Globe. Okay.
I think she is very interested in storytelling. And like, here's the thing. If it were a few years ago and it was going to be like a cottage core fantasy movie,
right,
that I'd be really interested in.
Yeah.
Like, I'd love to see a movie with the Willow song or something.
Right.
But I do not want a pop Taylor contemporary movie. Please don't.
It is just going to be, at this point, it's just going to be her defending her toxicity. And we
Pretty
really
much.
need to step away. And it's funny because games for men are in an own your shit phase, like video games.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have Alan Wake 2, we have God of War, and, you know, a lot of women play God of War. But
well, it's also interesting because, you know, the original creator of God of War talked about how he didn't like how the series has evolved. And it's like, that says more about you than it does anything else, dude.
yeah, because I mean the Valhalla DLC is showing how this has been the same guy from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
He's just gotten older and a little wiser. And I love those original games and I love the new games, and I am very picky. So I don't feel like the new games violate the old ones at all. But, you know, game devs, okay, and it's not across the board because The Last of Us 2 exists, but they're owning their shit and they're telling stories of, you know, Alan Wake 2 is the story of, look, if you need everybody around you to kiss your ass because you are miserable despite all your success, the wife who feels shitty because her art doesn't make any money and so she just has to support you instead of doing her thing is going to help gaslight you for various reasons. Your manager is going to try to protect you, but eventually he's going to up and leave. And a darkness that has infected you is going to spread. That theme in the game is very, very clear.
And I think it's interesting because it's very much a case of meeting men where they're at.
Yeah.
Where it's like, men really, really need to address their mental health. And it's something that our society just is not prioritizing, isn't quite the right word.
Well, they're looking, they pander to men
they give lip
soothing.
service.
They pander instead of soothe.
Yeah.
Right.
And like, we give lip service to men's mental health, but a lot of people don't actually do anything about it.
Well, because marketers know that if men are happy, they don't buy dumb shit.
True. And God, sorry, I just remembered the Stanley Cup thing, not the hockey trophy, but there is this cup, and it's from a company that's been making thermoses for years.
Yeah.
But somehow some blog aimed at women featured it.
Yeah.
And they went from like $75 million.
Yep.
In 1 year, a few years later, they're up in like 223 million, I think.
Oh.
And it's very much a case of women are a valid market.
Yep.
But at the same time, you see the way they collect them because it's so many different colors. And then like they just released the pink and red limited edition Valentine's Day ones, and they're $50 each.
Yep.
At least.
There's a stupid tax on anything pink.
Yes, it's not a pink tax. It's just stupid tax.
It's a stupid tax. It's you will pay for this. So we're going to charge you more.
Yeah. And just, and it's not even just when they're pink. It's just, you know, Valentine's Day limited edition. And my boyfriend has become fascinated with just the sheer obsession. So like he'll find videos and send them to me of people just going completely crazy over them.
Yeah.
And I've become fascinated too,
He
but it's
must be
also
very confused by that.
a little. I mean, he's a casual Warhammer fan.
Meaning he's only 30% super intense about it.
Not even that.
Okay. Okay.
Like he plays the Total War games.
Okay. Yeah.
He plays the Total War games and he watches lore videos on YouTube. But
oh, he's where I'm at. I've read a few of the books, and I know I love Nurgle. Like, I love the fucked up shit.
yeah,
Right.
so like he is aware that plastic crack addictions are a thing.
Oh, but
And
also the books. The books are worse than the plastic crack.
well, it's but I kind of compare that where it's like, okay, the Stanley Cups are basically plastic crack as well.
Oh, they
And,
are.
and it's just these women, they have shelves and shelves of these things
Yep.
that just, and there's no way you can use them all. And just, it's so much money spent on these cups that you're
But
not going to use, but they're a
but these
status symbol.
but these are also people who have money
Mm-hmm.
and no one who is listening to them. And so this is their way of communicating.
And like the other thing, and this one is a bit more personal for me. So there's a brand called Loungefly,
Mm-hmm.
and they do these really cute mini backpacks and purses.
Okay.
A lot of them are Disney themed in particular. That's their big money maker, but they also do other stuff as well. But I see people who and these things are like almost $100 each for like the backpack and then another 100 for the purse.
Mm-hmm.
And they have hundreds of them and they put them on their shelves. And again, it's Disney. There are a lot of Disney collectors who just buy a lot of stuff. But it's like they put them on their shelves and they're piled on top of each other and they're piled in front of each other. And of course, they're limited edition. So it's like you have to, if you have to get this one right away,
Right.
or it might never come back. And oh yeah, you like that Disney movie, so of course you want it. Now, admittedly, I have the entire set of one of their Cinderella collections. So it's like I have the purse, the backpack, and the matching wallet.
Oh, nice.
But that's one set.
Right.
That cost me like $200 because I got them on sale. And yeah, I'm going to have to replace my purse because it's starting to wear out, but I'm still like,
yeah, I got to replace my Zelda bag and I can't find a worthy replacement that is in my price range.
Yeah. And I'm just like, it's so much. And like you said, it's they have money, but they don't have anyone listening to them, which I mean, that's the sense where money can't buy happiness. We've gotten to the point where like the economy where things are so rough that at this point there are a lot of people who money would make them very happy.
Oh yeah.
Because if I had enough financial stability that like I could pay my rent and do what I love and all this, it would change everything.
We know where happiness peaks in terms of happiness increases with money to $250,000 and then it starts dropping.
That actually sounds about right.
Yep.
Yeah. So now I know what my goal needs to be.
$250,000 a year. Maximum happy. Yep.
That's interesting. Okay. Thank you.
That's household income, by the way. So
of course. So it's like, yeah, we know that there's, I've got 99 problems and money would solve all of them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that is a real, but then you look at a lot of the, January 6th people, some of those were in that back bracket. So it's not a guarantee. It's just, that's the trend.
Well, no, because it's you also, money can only do so much when, especially for men who feel villainized, and not even just men, because like we know there were women in January 6th as well, but they feel attacked.
But let's face it, that can't come just from media or the internet. No. If you are thinking that the people on Twitter represent the world, there's something wrong with your immediate world. Like, that is not, because I go on Twitter, it's like, these people are, where do they come from? You know, it's very scary when somebody you actually know starts talking that way. Right-wing extremism and left-wing extremism.
Yeah. Do you remember this song last summer that was Rich Men North of Richmond?
Yes. Yeah. And they're like, stop using it. It was about you. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's also, I've seen people get really critical because like in the second verse, there's the lyric, if you're 5'3" and you're 300 pounds, taxes ought not to pay for your bags of fudge rounds. And I've seen people on the left in particular get really upset about that line. And even think I even saw someone call it evil. But it's like, I've lived in areas where welfare absolutely was milked and it was taken advantage of. And, you know, women would have more kids just so they could stay on it. And so it's like, I get it. I get both sides. And I'm not
there's a shining example of somebody who believes better is impossible. Because nobody deals with the stigma of welfare if they have a better option.